The Yellowstone supervolcano, it's a caldera volcano. Like they didn't realize that it was so big until somewhere in like the 2000s, I think it was. They did satellite imagery and they realized, oh my God.
Imagine Yellowstone suddenly shaking with hundreds of earthquakes. This isn't just a few rumbles, it's a warning of something terrifying. A massive supervolcano that might erupt. People are freaking out, scientists are scrambling, and the whole world is watching in fear. Everyone's talking about the disaster that could hit any moment. What if this giant volcano blows? Let's see when the Earth will explode into volcanic debris. Beneath the beauty. Scientists began saying these weren't just random shakes. They might be the sign of something much more dangerous, a potential supervolcanic eruption. Yellowstone sits on a massive volcanic hotspot that erupts violently every few centuries, with the power to affect entire continents. As people learned more, panic started to spread. In a recent podcast, Joe Rogan and Billy Carson talked about how locals were on edge, scientists were scrambling to understand what might happen, and everyone else was anxiously watching. The fear of this supervolcano causing widespread chaos is real. Back in 1870, Lieutenant Gustave Doane climbed Mount Washburn during an expedition and noticed something strange, a vast basin where the Rocky Mountains should have been. He correctly guessed that this was the remnant of an ancient volcano. But the story doesn't end there. Yellowstone is not just any volcano. It's one of the largest and most famous in the world. Contrary to what Lieutenant Doane initially thought, the Yellowstone volcano is very much active. The potential for a supervolcanic eruption at Yellowstone makes it a sleeping giant, capable of immense destruction. This is why scientists and authorities keep a close watch on it. Yellowstone's story has shifted from being a place of natural beauty to a serious reminder of nature's incredible power and the need for constant vigilance. Unlike regular volcanic eruptions that can devastate nearby areas with lava and ash, a supervolcano can wipe out entire landscapes and even change global climates, threatening species across the planet. Even though humans haven't witnessed such an eruption firsthand, scientists have pieced together how these mega explosions start. Deep within the Earth, extreme heat and pressure create a massive magma chamber. Over thousands of years, this pressure builds up, causing the ground above to bulge. Eventually, like a pressure cooker that can't hold the steam any longer, it releases in a catastrophic explosion, much like opening a shaken soda can. Over 18 million years, the Yellowstone hotspot has triggered numerous eruptions, shaping what we now know as the Yellowstone caldera. The remnants of these eruptions are visible in the eerie landscapes of the Snake River Plain, stretching across southern Idaho, Oregon, and Nevada, where vast lava flows have left their mark. This hotspot continues to move due to tectonic shifts. This quake struck during the peak tourist season, resulting in significant damage to infrastructure and loss of lives. Hebgen Lake, created by the Hebgen Dam, and the Madison River Canyon are among the notable sites impacted by this event. The story of Yellowstone, especially the events around the 1959 earthquake, is a powerful reminder of nature's strength and the unpredictability of life in areas prone to volcanic and seismic activity. The aftermath led to significant changes throughout Yellowstone National Park, as officials quickly moved to evacuate people and repair damaged structures. This shows both the danger and the resilience of those living in the shadow of such natural disasters. Old Faithful Geyser, known for its regular eruptions, started erupting less often after the earthquake. The time between its bursts increased from 65 minutes to 74 minutes. Sapphire Pool and Biscuit Basin, which were calm before, suddenly began shooting water over 200 feet into the air. This powerful activity destroyed the basin's unique biscuit-shaped rocks and changed the landscape significantly. Even the Steamboat Geyser, which had been quiet for over 50 years, erupted in 1961, just a few years after the 1959 earthquake. This shows how much earthquakes can affect Yellowstone's geothermal activity. Yellowstone's landscape hides powerful forces that shape its beauty, unveiling Yellowstone's hidden geological mysteries. Today, you can still see signs of that earthquake near Earthquake Lake. The bare hillsides and drowned trees serve as reminders of how much the scenery changed. Yellowstone continues to experience tremors, like the 4.8 magnitude quake in 2014 near Norris Geyser Basin. These ongoing quakes highlight the park's ever-changing and active nature. Beneath Yellowstone, there's a complex system for geological monitoring, mostly managed by experts from the University of Utah. They have 26 seismic stations throughout the park, constantly recording data to understand what's happening underground. These instruments often pick up clusters of small earthquakes, known as earthquake swarms, which happen close together over a short period. For instance, in 2010, nearly 2,000 tremors were recorded between Old Faithful and West Yellowstone. Though these swarms might seem alarming, they give researchers valuable insight into Yellowstone's volcanic systems. The park has seen massive volcanic eruptions in the past, including the last 3 super eruptions on Earth. The most recent of these occurred about 640,000 years ago. That eruption was so powerful, it sent an ash cloud 100,000 feet into the air, covering the western United States and even reaching the Gulf of Mexico. The force and global impact of Yellowstone's volcanic activity are enormous. When these supervolcanoes erupt, they release deadly flows of hot gases, rocks, and ash, dramatically changing the landscape. But that wasn't the worst part. Even today, the signs of these ancient explosions are hidden beneath peaceful forests, only visible to those who know where to look. Now, Yellowstone's landscape is shaped by its explosive history and ongoing volcanic activity. Despite its turbulent past, the area now supports a rich ecosystem. For example, grizzly and black bears rely on nuts from certain pine trees that grow in the nutrient-rich soil left behind by past eruptions. The park is also dotted with geothermal features like geysers, mud volcanoes, and hot springs, which constantly change in temperature and activity. New ones sometimes appear, but these fascinating features can also be dangerous. There have been incidents where wildlife was harmed by the extreme heat. Yellowstone was once overlooked after early surveys in the 1800s, but interest surged again in the 1950s, leading to groundbreaking discoveries about its volcanic history in the following decade. While exploring Yellowstone, particularly around Pele Island and the southern areas of Yellowstone Lake, researchers noticed something unusual. Trees that once stood tall and healthy were now partially buried and decaying along the shores. This was a stark contrast to their condition in 1956, when they were vibrant and alive. Even the boat dock from that time was now underwater, indicating that the lake's water levels had risen significantly. Further investigations revealed that the Hayden Valley, just north of the lake, had risen by about 30 inches over the decades. What made this even more interesting was that while the northern lake levels had increased, the base level remained unchanged. This suggested that the northern rise might be causing the southern part to rise as well. These findings highlighted the ongoing and active geological changes within Yellowstone, pointing to the park's volcanic activity beneath the surface. By 1979, these observations had been recorded, showing Yellowstone as a place of constant geological change. As technology advanced, scientists began to understand more about Yellowstone's underground volcanic system. By studying the sound waves from earthquakes and how they moved through different rock layers, they discovered a massive column of hot rock deep within the earth. This column, which tilts northwest at a 60-degree angle and stretches nearly 400 miles below, is what heats Yellowstone's magma chamber. Yellowstone's ground reveals ancient rhythms still at play today. The secrets beneath the surface. The movements of the Earth in this area aren't random. They're signs of the ongoing volcanic activity. As the magma chamber gets hotter from the rising plume, it expands, causing minor earthquakes. These earthquakes help release pressure, by bringing hydrothermal fluids to the surface, which makes the ground rise and fall over time. For instance, after a big earthquake in 1985, Yellowstone's ground level dropped by about 8 inches over 10 years, only to rise again later, with the fastest uplift recorded since the 1970s beginning in 2004. The Hunga volcano near Tonga demonstrated the power of underwater volcanic eruptions in January 2022. After emitting ash for a long time, the volcano erupted dramatically, sending 2.3 cubic miles of lava into the air and turning 146 billion liters of water into vapor. This was enough to fill tens of thousands of Olympic-sized swimming pools. The eruption created a massive ash plume that reached up to 36 miles high, almost touching space, and was accompanied by an impressive display of volcanic lightning. This lightning, similar to what was seen during the Mount Vesuvius eruption in 79 AD, is a well-known phenomenon. The eruption also showed the phenomenon of gravity waves, caused by the rapid rise of hot volcanic gases. These waves, which happened due to differences in air density, spread out horizontally and formed ripple-like patterns in the sky. But this wasn't the only interesting part. These waves carried volcanic ash and vaporized seawater high into the atmosphere, where the rapid cooling formed ice crystals and soft hail. This process increased the electrical discharges during the eruption, making it similar to a thunderstorm but much more intense because of the volcanic activity. The potential eruption of the Yellowstone volcano is still a topic of great interest and concern. Even though it has been dormant for over 70,000 years, the possibility of a significant eruption remains. Such an event could have a dramatic impact on global climates and ecosystems, reminding us of the unpredictable and immense power of this supervolcano. Yellowstone's history is closely tied to the broader geological history of North America, shaped by periods of intense volcanic activity that have transformed the landscape over millions of years. The last massive eruption, around 640,000 years ago, released enormous amounts of volcanic material, covering much of the western US in ash and affecting global climates. The immediate and long-term effects of such eruptions are severe, with the potential for widespread environmental, economic, and human impacts. But the worst part isn't just the eruption itself. The fallout, such as widespread ash that could disrupt air travel, damage machinery, contaminate water supplies, and cause serious health problems, is also a major concern. Moreover, the possibility of a volcanic winter, where ash clouds block sunlight and lower global temperatures, could severely impact agriculture and lead to worldwide food shortages. The release of volcanic gases could also result in acid rain, damaging crops, forests, and aquatic systems. The economic and human costs of such an event are unimaginable, highlighting the critical need for effective monitoring and preparation to reduce the risk of a potential disaster. People can use TikTok even on devices that aren't specifically made for it. This was discovered when a software expert took a closer look at the app and found it to be much more invasive than any other app he had seen. Just reading the terms of service is enough to make you realize how far some companies will go to push their product. It's not just about targeting ads, which we're used to with companies like Google. TikTok goes further. They can access our microphones without us even knowing. Human challenges today shape the world of tomorrow. The silent impact of everyday chemicals. Changing human behavior is hard. People need to want to change, and that desire has to come from within. If you've ever tried to help someone quit drugs or alcohol, you know how difficult it can be to convince them to change. They need a personal reason to make that shift. The same applies to adopting healthy habits. You can only lead by example, showing others how to live a healthy and positive life. This is one of the great things about the internet. It allows us to see people living healthier lives, which can inspire us to do the same. John Donor recently shared a compelling message on Instagram, emphasizing the significance of maintaining routines, particularly for athletes. In his post, He argued that a well-disciplined routine is fundamental to achieving success. This concept, although always resonated with many, was eloquently captured in words by Donor. The journey of self-improvement often begins with finding a passion, be it in the arts, martial arts, or any other field. For some, this journey commenced with an interest in drawing and comics, which later transitioned into martial arts. This shift was instrumental in overcoming anxieties and insecurities. Dedicating oneself to a passion not only enhances self-perception, but also transforms feelings of inadequacy into a realization of one's true potential. Through such pursuits, individuals not only refine their skills, but also forge a new understanding of what they are capable of achieving, underscoring the transformative power of dedication and love for one's pursuits. But this wasn't the only important lesson. This idea of finding passion isn't just for hobbies. It also helps in handling criticism and negativity, whether from people or online. Taking on challenging tasks, both mentally and physically, builds resilience and mental strength, countering the idea that physical work is just for the sake of it. However, there's another challenge we face. Our physical environment is changing us in ways we've never seen before. Dr. Shanna Swan's research suggests that chemicals in plastics and fertilizers are affecting our bodies, lowering male fertility and blurring gender characteristics. These environmental changes might be pushing us toward a future where gender becomes more fluid, possibly leading to genetic engineering as a solution for reproduction. This concern about physical health and societal norms also touches on how we view obesity. There's a lot of misinformation out there, like a claim on a major news show that genetics alone are responsible for obesity, a statement that health experts disagree with. Personal stories like that of Ethan Suplee show that with discipline and lifestyle changes, significant weight loss is possible, challenging the idea that obesity is only about genetics. But this is not the worst part. As our world becomes more advanced, we're unknowingly taking in more plastic, which could lead to unexpected changes in our biology. This might deeply impact how we see and define gender in the future. Meanwhile, we're also dealing with serious societal issues like gun violence and the need to protect our children. Global conflicts, like the situation in Yemen, often go unnoticed, reminding us of the many complex challenges we face today. During the Ukraine conflict, major newspapers often painted the situation in simple terms: Ukraine as the good guy and Russia as the bad guy. However, some critics pointed out that Ukraine has its own issues, like corruption, which those same newspapers have reported on in the past. This makes you question how much we can really trust established news sources and wonder what's truly real in a world where facts can be twisted. Our connected world blurs the lines between reality and imagination, exposing alternate realities. But here's the thing. What if the reality we know, including our dreams, isn't as straightforward as we think? Maybe dreams aren't just our imagination, but glimpses into other realities. These nightly adventures could be us interacting with different timelines or dimensions where the usual rules don't apply and everything is flexible. If this is true, then our waking life might just be one of many layers of existence, each one possibly affecting or being affected by these other realms. Imagine how the world looks to someone who's never seen our everyday life, with all its technology and busy city streets like Times Square. To an outsider, our reality could seem like something out of a science fiction story. But the constant drive for technological progress comes from a basic human instinct to innovate and evolve, making tools and technologies that continue to enhance what we can do. But this isn't just about keeping up with trends. The urge to create new things, like faster phones or more efficient cars, might be a natural response to deeper questions about our existence. It's a journey that shapes our culture and can be seen as a collective effort to understand and make the most of the physical world. Now, think about our journey through life as being connected to something much bigger. For example, the largest living organism on Earth, a fungus in the Pacific Northwest, shows how connected life can be. This idea makes us wonder if life on Earth started because of cosmic events, suggesting that the universe might be more interconnected and purposeful than we usually think. But this isn't the end of the story. As we move through these complex ideas, people like Elon Musk come into the picture, representing the mix of innovation, ambition, and controversy. Some critics warn about the risks of having so much power in the hands of a few tech leaders, as it could change not just industries, but also our social norms and ethical boundaries. In business, Elon Musk often presents himself as just a regular guy who supports free speech. This was especially clear when he bought Twitter. At first, he talked a lot about promoting free speech, but then he started limiting what content could spread, calling it freedom of reach. Now that there's a new CEO, people don't have high hopes that Musk will stick to his original promises. Many of Musk's actions are surrounded by doubt and skepticism. For example, in 2014, he was photographed with Ghislaine Maxwell, and he casually dismissed it as just a photobomb. However, he avoids talking about any deeper connections. Interestingly, Musk's brother, Kimball Musk, who is on the board of Tesla and SpaceX, had a relationship with a woman previously linked to Jeffrey Epstein. This woman lived at an address connected to trafficked girls, and this connection supposedly gave Epstein access to SpaceX, even allowing him to advise Tesla. Despite Musk's public denials, a New York Times reporter confirmed these details. But that's not the only concerning part. Epstein, who was also an advisor to Mohammed bin Salman, was involved in talks about funding Tesla, possibly through a Saudi wealth fund. This raises more questions about Musk's intentions, especially around the time when Epstein's criminal activities became widely known. Musk's decision to buy Twitter also brings up many questions. Did he do it to support free speech, collect massive amounts of data for AI training, or turn Twitter into a platform like China's WeChat? While many see Musk's wealth as a result of his entrepreneurial spirit, a large part of it also comes from significant government subsidies and working closely with state authorities. This close relationship with the government has played a big role in his success. However, mainstream media often doesn't dig deep enough into these issues or disclose their sources, leaving us with more questions than answers about Musk's true motivations and actions.
Yellowstone's hidden threat. Just last week, a hydrothermal explosion forced parts of the park to close, sparking fears of a possible eruption. Could this be a sign of something bigger? The situation is serious, and experts are closely monitoring it. This isn't just about Old Faithful and other famous geysers anymore. It's about ensuring everyone's safety. On July 23, 2024, an unexpected hydrothermal explosion took everyone by surprise. It happened in Biscuit Basin, a place known for its beautiful hot springs. The explosion occurred because underground water suddenly turned to steam, causing intense pressure. Today, another explosion in the same area shot rocks and steam over 100 feet into the air. These kinds of events can happen without warning, which is why park officials are always vigilant. But here's the thing, it wasn't even the worst part. The explosion caused significant damage, especially to a walkway near a pond. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Park officials were quick to reassure the public, saying these events are common and not usually a cause for concern. However, the presence of a supervolcano twice the size of the park itself makes some visitors uneasy. The idea of frequent explosive events has started to deter people as they worry about their safety. Some even believe this could be a sign of increasing volcanic activity that could eventually lead to a massive eruption. The conversation starts by looking at 3 important volcanic events that have been recorded at Yellowstone. Recently, there was a small eruption at Yellowstone, along with noticeable changes in the Earth's surface and frequent earthquakes. These could be signs of something bigger and more dangerous than any volcanic activity we've seen before. However, these smaller incidents happening in the park are making experts pay closer attention. Even with these signs, scientists at the Yellowstone Volcanic Observatory reassure the public that there's no immediate danger. They believe an eruption isn't likely anytime soon, and the chances of it happening in the near future are almost zero. The volcanic alert levels remain the same, indicating that there's no disaster on the horizon. If there were, the warning levels would have gone up already. But here's something to think about. How can these experts stay so calm when there seem to be clear signs of danger? To understand this, we need to look closer at the Yellowstone caldera, one of the largest volcanic systems in the world. History shows that this system has erupted massively in the past, creating the formation we see today. The caldera was formed by a series of massive eruptions, with the last one happening around 600,000 years ago. The powerful geyser steamboat, which is even stronger than Old Faithful, has recently become active again. The area covers about 30 by 45 miles and sits on top of two huge magma chambers. These chambers make up a complex network, with the upper reservoir lying deep below the surface, stretching for miles, and holding a huge amount of magma. This magma is unusually thick, which slows its movement in many areas. About 20% of this chamber is liquid magma, with the rest made up of denser material. But this isn't the scariest part. The lower chamber, located much deeper beneath the Earth, contains an even larger amount of magma spread over a vast area. This intricate system beneath Yellowstone not only fascinates scientists studying it, but it also plays a key role in monitoring and predicting volcanic activity. Deep underground, powerful forces stir, drawing scientists into a quest to understand what lies beneath. Yellowstone's hidden fire. The passage begins by describing a system that warms the upper areas using a network of dikes and channels. This system is massive, holding nearly 50,000 cubic kilometers of material. It's powered by a column of hot rock that rises from deep within the Earth, bringing heat and molten rock to the system. When the heat and pressure inside the underground chambers reach high levels, the chances of a major volcanic eruption become significant. We then learn that a team of volcano experts in Poland is using thermal cameras to monitor temperatures in a large area of magma. This hidden fiery spot powers the geothermal features in the region. The heat from this underground lava energizes hot springs, geysers, mud pools, and fumaroles, making the area one of the most geothermally active places on Earth. The passage then discusses how recent hydrothermal explosions, like one at Biscuit Basin, led to the creation of the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory. After that explosion, the observatory, led by scientist Michael Poland, was set up to monitor volcanic activity in the Yellowstone area. This organization consists of 9 different state and federal agencies that work together. These groups constantly watch for any signs of volcanic activity and regularly check the hot springs and other geothermal features in the area. They frequently update the public on both volcanic and earthquake activities in Yellowstone. The experts warn that a large eruption could have devastating effects worldwide, but they also clarify that the frequent geothermal activity doesn't mean an eruption is about to happen. It's mentioned that Yellowstone has had only 3 major eruptions in the last 2 million years, which fits with earlier patterns. While a significant eruption is always a possibility, there's currently no sign of increased volcanic activity. To come to this conclusion, the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory uses different tools to detect any signs of growing volcanic activity. The geology teams at the observatory use instruments like seismometers to detect small earthquakes in the area. These tremors often indicate shifts in magma beneath the surface, which can signal an increase in seismic activity. Although Yellowstone experiences many minor quakes each year, these are usually due to natural shifts in the Earth's crust rather than signs of a major eruption. But there's more to consider. The frequency of these natural events has increased, now happening about every 29 to 30 minutes instead of every 40 minutes. Significant changes in the ground level at Yellowstone also serve as possible indicators of volcanic activity. The observatory monitors these changes using GPS and other systems that measure shifts in the Earth's surface. When the ground swells, it might suggest magma is building up, while sinking ground could mean magma is moving away. However, if these changes happen only occasionally and are not part of a larger trend, they likely don't signal an increase in volcanic activity. The observatory also keeps an eye on gas emissions around the large caldera. A rise in these emissions could suggest magma is getting closer to the surface, but recent air quality and gas tests show everything is still within normal levels, indicating no surge in volcanic activity. The observatory closely monitors changes in geysers and hot springs by checking the temperature, water chemistry, and flow rates. Big changes in these areas could mean volcanic activity, but right now, everything looks normal. They also study past volcanic eruptions to help predict future ones, and the current data shows that an eruption is highly unlikely. With all the earthquake monitoring systems in place, the data we've collected doesn't show any of the usual signs that a volcano might erupt soon. There are no major ground shifts, severe earthquakes, or strong gas emissions, which means there's no immediate danger. This type of geothermal activity is normal for a large volcanic area like this one. Plus, if an eruption were likely, states like Idaho, Montana, Nevada, Nebraska, and Colorado would be getting ready for evacuation because an eruption would spread ash and debris over those areas. Since no such preparations are happening, it's clear that experts don't see an eruption coming soon. Changes under Yellowstone hint at events that could reshape our understanding of volcanoes. Yellowstone's hidden warning. But this doesn't mean we can completely ignore the possibility. The Yellowstone Volcanic Observatory reminds us that while a big eruption isn't likely, the risk is always there. That's why it's important to stay alert and be ready. We need to understand what could happen if the volcano did erupt, what it would look like, and how it would affect not just the nearby states, but possibly the entire country and beyond. If an eruption were to happen, there would be many warning signs first. One of the first signs would be a noticeable increase in both the number and strength of earthquakes around the area. These earthquakes would be stronger than the usual small tremors and would happen because magma is pushing up towards the Earth's surface, not just from the usual tectonic plate movements. People would feel these earthquakes over a wide area, and they would serve as a clear warning. After these earthquakes, there would be big changes in the ground level. The ground above the magma chamber would start to swell, and this could be tracked using GPS and satellite technology, which are designed to measure even small movements of the Earth's surface. This information would be quickly shared with the public. Along with these ground movements, there would be an increase in heat and gases coming from the ground, including high levels of sulfur and carbon dioxide. All these signs together would signal that a volcanic event is becoming more likely. A future scenario, the geysers and hot springs in the park would get much hotter. These natural wonders, already known for their heat, would become even warmer. Small eruptions would happen more often, and new cracks would open in the ground, letting out gases trapped under high pressure. This increase in activity underground would cause serious environmental problems. Huge explosions would send large amounts of ash and gases into the sky, forming a massive cloud that would rise several kilometers high. This eruption would be far bigger than any we've seen before, covering large parts of North America with thick ash. But that's not the worst part. Even areas far from the eruption would be affected. A fine layer of ash would settle everywhere, disrupting transportation, damaging buildings, and posing health risks. Even more troubling, the sulfur compounds released into the atmosphere would cool the Earth temporarily. This cooling, similar to what happened after the 1991 Mount Pinatubo eruption, could lead to a volcanic winter lasting for years. This would harm agriculture, ecosystems, and the economy across North America. Closer to the eruption site, deadly flows of hot gases and volcanic debris, known as pyroclastic flows, would destroy everything in their path. These flows would carry large rocks and mud at high speeds, burying entire landscapes. The surrounding areas would become uninhabitable, and Yellowstone Park would lose much of its natural beauty and wildlife. But the impact wouldn't stop there. The economic and social effects would be felt around the world, disrupting air travel and food supplies. Trade across North America would be severely affected, and the rest of the world wouldn't be spared either. While such a massive eruption seems unlikely, history shows it's not impossible. Scientists have studied the Yellowstone caldera, learning from 3 major eruptions over the past 2 million years, with the largest being the Huckleberry Ridge eruption. This event released over 2,000 cubic kilometers of material, making it one of the most powerful in history. But there's more to worry about. Past volcanic activities, like the 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora, help scientists understand how far ash can spread and how much it can affect the climate. These eruptions could change weather patterns across continents. If Yellowstone's supervolcano were to erupt in a similar way, the global cooling could reduce sunlight, cause crops to fail, and lead to the collapse of ecosystems worldwide. Managing nature's power shows the balance between human skill and Earth's forces. The volcanic threat beneath our feet. A more recent example comes from southern Iceland in 2010. The eruption there stopped air travel for months and caused acid rain that damaged water and soil. The recovery from such a disaster would take decades, deeply affecting social systems, transportation, and trade. Thanks to these insights, organizations like the Yellowstone Volcanic Observatory and the United States Geological Survey have developed ways to monitor and prepare for possible future eruptions. Even though the risk of such an event happening soon is low, these preparations are crucial to managing hidden risks and ensuring safety against potential volcanic threats. Scientific organizations have set up a wide network of tools called seismometers to watch for earthquakes and track the movement of lava. These instruments provide immediate updates, which scientists use to make decisions and share important information when needed. There are many ways to detect changes in the Earth's surface, helping to see if magma is rising or sinking back underground. In various places, special devices check for unusual levels of gases like sulfur and carbon dioxide, which can signal increasing volcanic activity. When these gas levels go up, scientists are alerted right away. The U.S. Geological Survey regularly provides updates and advice on potential volcanic dangers and how to respond. This helps ensure that everyone knows what to do if volcanic activity increases. Plans are in place for evacuations, finding safe shelters, and using alternative communication methods, especially through the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory. These plans consider different possible outcomes because it's tough to predict exactly how a volcanic event will unfold. But that's not all. In addition to watching the ground, there are strategies for managing air traffic during these crises, like rerouting or canceling flights to avoid accidents. Communities that might be affected are given essential supplies like food, water, and medical care. Continuous research at Yellowstone focuses on improving predictions and assessing risks, highlighting the importance of global cooperation to reduce potential damage. This cooperation involves sharing key data and supporting response efforts across countries. People in the community are also involved through practice drills that start as soon as there are signs of a possible eruption. These drills are crucial because they teach people how to handle emergencies effectively. Programs like the U.S. Volcano Hazards Program offer ongoing advice on dealing with volcanic events. While the U.S. Geological Survey and the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory see a volcanic event as something manageable, NASA views it as a much bigger threat, similar to a massive asteroid hitting the Earth. According to the BBC, NASA uses advanced satellites to monitor the Yellowstone caldera, allowing them to detect major changes and prepare in advance. They've developed ambitious plans to protect humanity, stressing the seriousness and urgency of this threat compared to other assessments. Under the park, a huge amount of hot, molten rock is slowly building up, and it could explode if it reaches a certain point. Although the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory hasn't reported any immediate dangers, NASA has still come up with ideas to deal with this possible threat. They've suggested a way to cool down the massive lava chamber beneath the park to prevent it from reaching temperatures that could cause an eruption. This idea might sound a bit far-fetched, and even BBC science journalist David Cox thought so, but here's what NASA proposed. NASA's plan involves creating a network of deep wells around the park, reaching areas where the heat is extremely intense. They would then pump in large amounts of cold water, which would absorb a lot of the heat from the rocks and lava. Afterward, the heated water would be brought back to the surface to generate clean energy. So while the lava chamber cools down to avoid an eruption, it would also provide a new source of energy for the surrounding regions. New ideas push science forward, revealing the challenges of turning plans into reality. The challenge of Yellowstone's lava chamber. At first, many people were impressed by this idea because it showed a creative solution to a huge natural problem. After all, this is the same agency that successfully sent humans to the moon over 40 years ago. Plus, this plan would help scientists learn more about how volcanoes work and could even help prevent eruptions around the world. However, more than 4 years have passed since this idea was introduced, and due to various reasons, the government hasn't provided the funds NASA needs to start the project. But this isn't the worst part. NASA's plan to manage the Yellowstone supervolcano faces a lot of technical and logistical challenges. A few major issues really stand out. First, getting to the lava chamber means using very strong machinery that can drill several kilometers into the Earth, where temperatures can reach nearly 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Most of today's drilling equipment can't handle such extreme heat and pressure. Second, cooling such a large area filled with molten rock would require a huge continuous effort. The powerful pumps would need to run non-stop, which means an enormous amount of water would be needed to keep the process going. This operation would need to continue for thousands of years to have a significant impact on preventing an eruption. But it gets worse. There are serious risks involved. Messing with an active lava chamber could accidentally trigger volcanic activity. Prolonged drilling might set off something that could cause an eruption. Changing the pressure deep in the earth could lead to severe natural disasters, such as major earthquakes or magma leaks that could contaminate groundwater, disrupt local ecosystems, harm marine life, and make water supplies in the area unsafe. Lastly, taking on such an ambitious project would require a massive amount of money. The cost to keep this initiative going for a long time would be enormous, which raises questions about whether NASA's bold plan is even practical or worth the investment. Implementing NASA's ambitious plan would take a lot of money and resources. Plus, we'd need to build advanced drilling equipment that could handle the extreme heat and pressure deep underground. On top of that, there would need to be plans in place to deal with the environmental risks that would come with it. The project could bring in a lot of money for those in charge, but the initial cost would likely be just as high, if not higher, than any profits. Economically, NASA's current approach isn't practical and needs a complete redesign. There's also no historical example to guide us in predicting the outcomes of such a project. Even if we had all the money and resources needed, success isn't guaranteed. Moving forward with so many unknowns would require a lot of optimism. The activity inside Yellowstone's massive magma chamber and the effects of trying to cool it down aren't fully understood yet. This project would need constant, intense effort for over 1,000 years. NASA's plan is groundbreaking, but it's still mostly theoretical and comes with significant technical and financial risks. Right now, we don't know enough about volcanic systems to ensure this project could be done safely. The operation might be possible, but practically it's not achievable at this time. It might be wiser to revisit NASA's ideas in 100 years, when our technology might be more advanced, affordable, and better for the environment. But until we reach that point, the project isn't realistic. Could investing in NASA's project now save us in the future? Or is it a waste of resources? Share your thoughts in the comments, like, and subscribe for more.